Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Old Hunt, where we are still celebrating 10 years of Bloodborne. We are playing through version 1.00 of the Japanese release, and last time we got to see some more of the effects of the Red Moon, the revelation that the Red Moon has drawn close, just as it did on the night that old Yarnum had to be burned to the ground because everyone was turning into beasts. And we've revealed a number of secrets, hidden rituals, and mysteries all throughout the world for everyone to see. People haven't necessarily been better off for that. Eileen, it seems, had ended up losing her head. We didn't give her any reason to rely on us to pass her actual profession down to us officially. And so she sort of went insane and saw all hunters as mad and ended up attacking us in the church. We had to put her down. It's a very sad moment, but we did get some important lore-relevant items in the form of this particular attire, suggesting that blood echoes are indeed some form of an afterlife, and maybe also potentially suggesting that, I can use that as evidence of my crazy lore theory, that we've woken up in a dream. Also possibly that the world that we wake up in with that amnesia is a dream. Because that's sort of, after a lot of back and forth, where I'm leaning towards again in terms of the lore. And so it would make sense if our spirit, right, we get a blood transfusion in the clinic early on, we die, and at that point sort of cross over to the other side, we move to this interim version of Yarnum. I don't know why I'm saying interim, dream version of Yarnum. And we're bound to this dream, but that's not where we show up. We show up in another hunter's dream. Maybe they didn't have time to give us a Yarnum burial to, hold us down because the night of the hunt broke out. Maybe they dumped us on the back of the clinic where we saw all those other corpses. I don't know. I don't know what the logistics would be behind the crazy lore theory, but I think you can sort of make it work. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to make it a strong enough part of my understanding of Bloodborne that I'm going to claim this is what's going on going forward, but I like it. And I do think part of that, I've said this before, I think part of that is just me saying this over and over again, trying to find ways to make it work, and through repetition, I've come to like it more and more. So there is that I need to be wary of, but on the whole, I think you could sort of get away with saying it. I don't think it's necessarily contradicted by anything really powerfully in the game. The thing is, it's sort of relatively minor. It's just kind of whether or not you like that idea. So, if you like it, cool. If you don't, oh well. I've had fun sort of entertaining that as a notion going back and forth. Might continue to reference it back and forth now and then. But before we get on with our exploration, as we need to do still, of Yahar'gul, before we go back there, I did remember there is one other important thing that we need to take a look at. The reason that we have this set... it should be under key items, right? It's a badge. Okay, I just didn't recognize it. Right here, we have the Crow Hunter badge. Literally the Crow Hunter verification. So I wanted to take a look at this before we head out into the streets. Get a little bit of description reading done in the dream. So let's go ahead and go get down to it now. I already gave the title, the Crow Hunter badge. It's very straightforward. It's the kanji for crow and then hunter verification, or, badge, because that's, if you look at this item, that's what it is. So Crow Hunter badge, I think, makes total sense for the name. As for the description, let's go ahead and read through that now. Okay, proof or badge of a or the hunter of hunters. Those who hunt hunters who've gone drunk with blood while beast hunting. Or alternatively, who've gone drunk on the blood of the beast hunt. That's a little bit more literal. But I think the blood of the beast hunt is the blood they're consuming while they're in the beast hunt. So I think even though that is a little bit of a leap there, I think it's a pretty safe one. Anyway, that's the first line. Pretty straightforward. It's telling us sort of what we already knew about Eileen, because she held this position before us. She was the hunter of hunters. Okay, we are going to get it in the next set of lines here. I was going to say, I was making a big deal about how it could be like a or the hunters of hunters, right? Like in the first line here. But we're going to get some confirmation that, in fact, there was only one. There was only the hunter of hunters. And so only one person, in theory, should be able to have this badge at a time. Let's get to the actual evidence, though, in the next section of lines here. This badge of hunting one's companions was secretly received in succession by just one person across the generations. And I've sort of, jumped from the beginning to the end back to the middle to get all the information in there. But I think that's a pretty good rendering of what all that information would work out to. So again, there's one person, and this is sort of passed on from generation to generation as a verification of those who goes around to hunt their companions, their fellows on the hunt. And that's, the tragedy of Eileen is she, in this version of things, couldn't stand that particular task anymore. It must be a burden for any hunter to have. And then you combine that with the revelation of the Red Moon, which everybody seems to really go crazy for, and you get some pretty impressive effects. Well, impressive, I would say. I think it's pretty impressive that Eileen maintained her sanity throughout several hunts, because she's seen hunts before, and I think it was a little bit... Some of the evidence that we get for this is not really available in the version of the game that I'm playing now, 1.00. I think if I remember correctly, one of the things they add back in later updates is one of the lines where she mentions the little doll. Say hello to the little doll for me. No, I think you're just confused, gameplay Matt. What seems to have thrown me is that while there is a note on the page that I've been referencing that indicates Eileen's dialogue has been cut down in version 1.00, that only appears to be the case if you warp into the Grand Cathedral to make Eileen hostile. Meanwhile, the line gameplay Matt is thinking of only gets delivered if she kills you in a fight before she relocates to the Grand Cathedral. Okay, having clarified that, I can let gameplay Matt get on with the main point about how this shows Eileen must have knowledge of the hunter's dream. That sort of shows that she was also once attached to this dream, much like Dira. And so that means she probably had her own Night of the Hunt where she was sort of, tied to the dream unkillable. Maybe she was in the state of someone who was dying and was brought into the dream, recognized as the Hunter of Hunters, and then found her way back to the real world just like Dira did, and has since continued to keep up with her profession. Although I guess if I'm thinking of it, I need to sort of recalibrate all these things now. If I'm really going to accept that the world of Yharnam that we know is also a dream, I guess even that is a dream version of her. That she's not necessarily running around in reality. I'm not sure I like the implications of that. There are certain things about having the world of Yharnam be like the actual world that I think make certain story beats stronger. And I've talked a little bit about them before. So maybe I'll go back and forth on this a little bit more. I think if you're not thinking of it from a storyteller's perspective, which again, that's sort of the angle that I tend to come at this game from, then I think it's a little bit easier to say the internal lore adds up a little bit better if you understand the world of Yharnam as a dream. But I'm not sure if I like that story the best. Anyway, that's a total diversion from this description. Let's go on to the final line in the second section here. All right, it is said that many of them, right, and then I think I'm saying them because we're getting sono, which literally would be that, sort of like sore, but we're referencing back to something. What are we referencing back to? We're referencing back to the single person in each generation through many generations that received this badge to hunt their companions. So of those many people throughout the generations, many of them were foreigners from hinterlands, right? From, far off regions, border regions, that sort of idea. Maybe I'll put the actual definition up on screen because I've got the sense, but I'm not sure I've got the right dictionary word. So the interesting thing though is that most of the Hunters of Hunters sort of like the original, because as we learned when we were reading about the outfit that we're wearing, the original Hunter of Hunters was inspired by their own practice of sky burial from a foreign country. So maybe something about foreigners and the Hunter of Hunters makes them more likely to accept the idea that Yharnam's practices around burial are blasphemous, whatever your interpretation of blasphemous means. Maybe that has something to do with why they're more likely to become Hunters of Hunters. Maybe it's something else entirely. It's notable that we could be officially recognized as the new Hunter of Hunters if we follow the other path with Eileen. She doesn't lose her sanity. She sort of passes on the mantle to us. And I think I talked before, that's sort of the other potential way we can view a side quest as having the end of a hunter, right? Is taking up the mission of someone else, having it passed on. And then us in turn, presumably passing that on to someone else. And so we could step into the role of the Hunter of Hunters. That obviously didn't happen. I guess we've got the badge now. We don't have the rune. I don't think we'll ever get the rune in this playthrough because that quest line's over. But it is interesting to think about, and because, of course, we ourselves are foreigners. We come to Yharnam from afar. So we're a good candidate for being the Hunter of Hunters. Anyway, let's move on to the final section here. Okay, they must first be strong. They must not become drunk on blood. And they must not forget to respect the dignity of the companions, the comrades they hunt, right? I've done a little bit of interpretive work there, but I think it's very safe interpretive work in terms of this is about the aspects that a hunter must have if they're going to be the Hunter of Hunters. And I particularly like the one about not forgetting the dignity of the companions that they hunt, right? So even as you are the Hunter of Hunters, and I think you can see this a little bit in the contrasting personality I've been talking about with Eileen, where she seems very warm and welcoming, and at the same time, she's alert to the signs of other hunters going mad. And if you do end up helping her in that fight with Henrik, and you together defeat him, she'll reassure you, because she realizes that you must have taken care of Gascoigne, and she knows that that might not sit well with you, because hunters aren't really supposed to hunt hunters, they're supposed to hunt beasts. And so she sort of reassures you that, like, I'm sure it had to happen, he was, like, losing it, I could tell, right? So it's obvious that that sort of takes a toll on the Hunter of Hunters, but they need to always strive to recognize the hunter that was, right? It's sort of like a more lethal version of Dura, right? Because the version of Dura that I've been talking about in this playthrough is someone who sort of forsook the hunt because he realized that the beasts were once people, and he afforded them so much respect that he didn't want to kill them, in his eyes, unnecessarily, right? And so he takes up the defensive posture in Old Yharnam, willing to fight to defend the beasts because he respects who they used to be so much. Hunter of Hunters, they're not going to defend people who are turning. They're going to try and kill the people who are turning, the people who have gone drunk with blood, who've lost who they are. But at the same time, they need to maintain respect, right? They can't ever lose this. The sign that Eileen has lost it is that she no longer affords you the respect of a hunter, right? In a sense. There might be a little bit more to it than that, but I think that is notable. That she talks about how, we're all flesh-hungry beasts now, right? That's not something she says when she's insane, right? That's what she says fairly early on, right? You don't have to worry about going around and killing beasts. There are no humans left. So you can see, I think, that she's starting to slip. And that's why, when you have the opportunity to intervene and show her that you are not a beast, right? You haven't lost it yet. You are genuinely a new person who's also there on the night of the hunt, and you're willing to support her, even though she tells you not to, because it would be, better for your health if you didn't take on that risk. Other hunters are the most dangerous things out there on the streets. Anyway, the point is, you have the opportunity in this quest line to bolster her, mental fortitude and help her maintain that respect for others. And that's what allows her to sort of give things up and pass the mantle on to you in the next storyline, because you've demonstrated yourself that you can handle the work, that you haven't gone drunk on blood in the course of your lengthy night of the hunt, and you are strong enough to uphold the title, and presumably you will show the people that you hunt down respect. Anyway, those are all like qualifications. Let's go on to the actual final line here. Okay, yeah, that's just sort of verifying. Only a hunter such as that is to be, it's not really clear. I think it makes the most sense to say is to be entrusted with this cursed badge. And again, this badge is like a curse, right? It's a burden that you have to bear because it necessarily forces you into a very dirty line of work that it's difficult to maintain your humanity in. So I think that's very cool. It sort of demonstrates the qualities that they look for in the Hunters of Hunters, some of the philosophy behind it, again, emphasized as well with the outfit that you get with the crowfeather garb. And yeah, here we are. We've sort of taken it by force rather than having it bestowed upon us, but that's how it had to go in this particular version of the game. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back to actual hunting, because now, actually, I think the best way to go is going to be back through that. No, I activated the lantern, didn't I? Where is it? Is it hidden? Let's see. Oh, yeah, okay. It's the first one here. Okay, the hidden ward, Yahar'gul. Let's go. Yeah, here we are. Back to all this weirdness. Take a note of this figure, by the way. This person wearing a sort of cage over their head, seated in a chair, facing towards the moon. That's going to be relevant for sure. All right, now, this next section is a little bit weird. I think I actually want to come this way, because there's stuff over here. But the enemies that we fight, I don't know if I necessarily showed this off to great effect before, but they're all red now, right? And when we defeat them, they just disappear. And they will actually keep coming back, because this is the part of the game where if you haven't been to the chalices, you're sort of introduced to a new mechanic. But if you have been down into the chalice dungeons, maybe you'll have some idea of what's happening, because this involves bell ringers making all of this happen. Okay, can't do anything. This elevator right now is nothing. Just wanted to make sure to get that item. Can't go through there because of the lever. Don't want to fall. All right, now we should be good. And are they back yet? They're going to be resummoned at some point. I wanted to wait around and show that off, because these enemies, like, I don't care too much if they come back. They're also buffed, because while they're glowing red, they're more difficult to... Here we go. They get summoned back. Where's the other one? Okay, there you are. So obviously that guy did a bunch of damage to me. The damage is bolstered, and I think the defense is also bolstered. This is not the way to go. This is the way to go. I was like, I knew it was up a staircase in this general vicinity. All right, found it. So they're being bolstered, I think, both offensively and defensively by the person who's ringing that bell. So I just had to run past all those enemies. And I don't know if you can hear, but we're very close now to the bell. And here's the bell ringer. And once we defeat the bell ringer, look at that. I deal a bunch more damage. First of all, they all sort of have this shock that seems to be related to the interruption of the bell ringer's summoning. I deal way more damage to them in a single strike. And I haven't gotten hit yet, but they do less damage to me as well. Let's, one of you come hit me. I give you one. All right, there. See? So they don't hurt nearly as bad as they did before. Oh, man. I actually rallied back a decent amount of health there. I'll take it. And then, of course, we have this amygdala overhead, who's just checking us out. But they will be happy to reach out and grab us if we get too close. There it is. Oops, I thought I was further back. Away with you. All right. So, whatever's happening in Yahar'gul the enemies, they still disappear. I thought for some reason that after you got rid of the bell ringer, they also stopped disappearing. They still disappear. And they still look sort of red. But they're no longer buffed, obviously. And there's that moment where they seem to be, like, shaken after the bell ringing stops. And sorry about that. Just wanted to shed a little bit of light where I'm in these sort of darker rooms here. And I do sort of wonder if that's supposed to indicate a connection of some kind that's being broken. Because one of the things that you learn about the bell ringers in the chalices is that those women who ring bells summon people. Well, they summon things as well, right? They summon spiders most of the time in the chalice dungeons, but also other enemies. They do tend to have that red, glowy look to them. And also, if you're playing the game online, they can summon in, if they'll like ring a sinister bell, and they'll summon in actual other players for the PvP element of this game. And so you have an opportunity to shut down the PvP if you can stop the person who's ringing that sinister bell. So it's the interesting thing, though, is that in the chalices, if you stop the bell ringer, all the summons sort of immediately vanish, right? They can't seemingly maintain their forms in this world without the bell ringer to ring the bell. These enemies stick around, right? There seems to be that moment of what I want to call lost connection to another world, maybe to a nightmare. It's a little bit unclear. Certainly the sound has the ability to travel across worlds, so it could potentially be traveling across nightmares. I sort of like the idea, even though I don't really have a lot of evidence for it, that they're being bolstered by some sort of nightmare, right? And the interaction between dream and reality, the lines are sort of blurred, and that's what's giving them their otherworldly strength by means of the toll of the bell, which might be why they don't disappear immediately when the bell ringer is defeated, like the enemies in the chalice dungeons, which have been summoned in like in whole cloth from other worlds, whereas these enemies are merely being strengthened by some version of the nightmare. Possibly similar to how we're tied to the dream? I'm not sure. I don't know. Interesting to think about, but I have no idea if it's worth anything or not. Anyway, I got a very powerful lightning gem there that might actually be pretty good on my Tonitrus, but let's check out this note here. Okay, stop the Mensis ritual. It's in something of a command form. Otherwise, eventually, everyone will become beasts. So, this, if you haven't figured it out through all the sort of arcane like mysteries and like puzzle pieces that I was putting together way back before I fought Vicar Amelia, right? This is about as clear as they can make it, because at this point, all the secrets have been revealed, right? So the revelations are really starting to come thick and fast, and they don't mind, I guess, just giving you this information at this point. They're telling you the Mensis ritual is the problem here, right? This is the source of the spreading scourge of beasts. We've got the Mensis ritual that's calling the moon, and that is the ritual that is slowly causing everyone to turn into a beast. Also ties in with the note that we got at Bergenworth about the line, the boundaries of man being like influenced by the proximity of the red moon. And right, particularly when it comes to beasts, right? And that this again, I think, could be why the official translators might have gone with the idea of the line between man and beast is blurred, because they don't say, right, this note isn't stop the Mensis ritual or we'll all become either inhuman or, you know, kin or great ones or something like that. No, it's the Mensis ritual must be stopped or we'll all become beasts, right? So the regular outcome of this sort of proximity of the red moon is bestial transformation. And we've already seen that at work in what happened to old Yarnum, if you remember back to all those notes we were reading a long time ago. But again, this is just making everything clear. So now we know we have to stop the Mensis ritual. That is our task in this game. We still don't really know what the Mensis ritual is, but we do know that it's important and we need to stop it, and it's having an adverse effect on us and the world. Okay, forget which way. Okay, right now the door is locked. That's what it is. We have to come in this way. I knew this was sort of a complicated way that we had to get around. Also, you know, just from a game development perspective, I've heard people point this out before. This is not like a unique observation on my part, but it is interesting to think... Drat, I thought I was far enough away. It is interesting to think about all these enemies. Oh, that's cool. Oh, it must have been the lightning effect. These are all enemies that we've seen before. Which means, essentially, by having this sort of cool, transformed version of the enemies for us to fight, the game is able to reuse the original sort of models and animations and like all that stuff, that all the work that went into crafting those enemies in the first place. They can now afford to essentially just reuse it because, well, it's just those enemies that have been, like, strengthened. And that's the effect. Drat. I was really hoping not to get shot. But that's okay. Oh, one more. There we go. Now you're dead. So, yeah, the developers sort of get to be cost-effective, right? I imagine, because there's a bunch of evidence that this game was made under a lot of time pressure, that there were... they had to just keep changing and changing and changing things, like, in a rush to get things done for the final release. They like, I think they slipped their original release date by, like, a couple months, and they were just kept working and working away at it. It really seems like they sort of had to go a little bit faster than they might have been comfortable with. But this way, I mean, I do think they hit it pretty well. You have to be looking at this game very closely, I think, before you start to realize that, oh yeah, it does feel a little bit rushed. But one way or the other, right, I think it's very efficient that they got to reuse the enemies this way, because I think it works, right? When I see those enemies lurking up with their, like, empowered forms, it feels like a new mechanic. It doesn't feel like, oh, it's these same stale old enemies that I'm fighting again, because they've been modified in an interesting enough way that they're able to sort of get new material out of old foes, and it's very clever, and I think very effective. All right. And as we continue to make our way around here, I forget which way is actually forward. I think I actually want to fall off to the right at some point around here. It's been a little while since I've been in this part. Okay, yeah. This is where I want to fall down. Let's see if anyone follows me. I don't think they will. Oh, hello. This is where I'm trying to get to. You know what? Oh, what? Ah! I wasn't expecting the game to give me that one. Oh boy. Oh no. It's the sonic wave of death. I've underestimated the bell ringer by leaving her alone. I forgot they have the sonic wave of death. You probably didn't get a good look at it in that instance, because I was, you know, locked around, not looking at her and trying to get out of it. But they do this thing where they ring their bell, and a certain sort of emanation goes through the air in different waves, and that ends up damaging you. And it can be surprisingly effective. Like, I like to think of the bell ringers as sort of being defenseless, but they aren't, especially if you go right next to them and then leave them alone. That's not a wise move. Also, one of the things I was distracted by was how relatively ineffective the executioner's gloves... Oh, the doorway must have mucked things up. Relatively ineffective the executioner's gloves have been. That's something that I've noticed. I think they probably changed the way that they interact with the game a little bit. in one of the updates, because it's just the way that they shoot out from the gloves, like the homing doesn't seem as effective, and it seems like I'm much more likely to get a situation where only one of the 3 ghosts that come out of the executioner's gloves hits, as opposed to several. Obviously, several is better, because that way you deal the most damage. All right, now, having dealt with the hidden bell ringer back there, how do I get out of here? That's the step that I completely forget. Shouldn't there just be like a door? I don't think I can get out through the cage. I'm hearing another enemy. Uh-oh. I'm hearing several other enemies. Okay, so this is also potentially important here. While I'm lost, I might as well point this out. We've got a corpse here, and we've seen that sort of clothing before, and I've talked about it. This is the choir set. Or you can tell by they have that blindfold cap. They've got this sort of noticeable white set of clothes, and it looks like this person was in some distress, right? They're locked in a cell, tied to a chair, and obviously posed as if they've had a bad time, right? Possibly they were being tortured. This is the corpse from which we picked up, let's go and find it here. That's the lecture key. The upper layer key. So we're going to deal with the upper layer key at some other point when I'm not lost. Oh, the doorway's right here. Incredible. You can tell I've gotten completely turned around. Haven't played this game in a while. I figured you could just walk out because I didn't think there was like a ladder or anything. I can't believe I just missed that door. I like ran all the way around the room and I totally missed that door. Oh, that's really funny. But anyway, is worth noting also, once again, figure in a chair, gazing at the moon, wearing a cage on their head. One of the sort of few visual references that I know to keep an eye out for, that I know is worth pointing out. Okay, and since we defeated the bell ringer hidden cleverly away, these enemies here should not be as difficult as they would have been otherwise. That does not mean that they will be easy, just that they will be easier than they would have been otherwise. Okay, someone saw me to throw a Molotov cocktail. That was you. Molotov cocktails are not things you should be throwing at me. They are things I should be throwing at you, if anything. Okay, they are on my hotbar. Cool. Oh, right, I forgot. I can just roll, and it disrupts them. And here we go. Oh, they got one of them. That's cool. As you saw, that particular amygdala is one of the few that is definitely actively hostile. Right? You have the boss fight. I should be able to stand where she was and not take any damage. Yeah, because she didn't take any damage. Wow, what an arm. I'm going to follow the same principle. If you're standing here and are fine, that means I can stand here and be fine. There we go. But this particular amygdala, I kind of wish it wasn't a preset path. The laser always follows a preset path. And it would be cool if there was a little bit more variety. But I know for a fact that I'm going to be 100% safe in this particular location. I have gotten killed by this laser before. Watch Translation Born. I had, the very first time I played this game, I died a bunch to this laser. And then on subsequent playthroughs, I basically never died to it anymore. And then I did my Translation Born playthrough and I died like 3 times to this laser on the stairs with these enemies clumped around. So it can still be something of a threat. But I think this is notable because, unlike the other amygdalas, that if they find you, they're sort of curious, they just pick you up and look at you, and then they teleport you somewhere, and they seem relatively benign. This one is shooting a laser out of its face and is actively hostile to us. think I'm going to wait for one more blast and then start running past. Okay. And I want to end my journey on the right side of the stairs. There we go. And we're outside of the range of the laser. But between that one and the boss, we can say that not all amygdala are peaceful or curious, and like that's the only thing that they care about, right? There's a little bit more going on there. And that's potentially important because I always want to make sense of the amygdala as essentially being like harmless, but they're really not. There's really a lot more to it than that. Let's see. I'm at a good stopping point here with this lantern. I think I'm going to follow it. Let me just come out here and grab some of the treasures that are more easily accessible. And then I'll turn around and head back to the dream. Because we've been going a decent length for an episode. And I think this next section is going to be difficult enough that it's worth tackling in its own episode. We'll see. We got a lot of enemies gathered around here. Yep. I don't normally come down and fight the dogs down here. Okay, that's the item that I want right there. I'm going to pick up that item. And then I don't care if I restart everything. Also, it's just kind of cool, right? You've got other amygdala that are just hanging out. This one will never do anything. It's kind of fun. Uh-oh. Alright, didn't matter. Whew! Did a plunging attack that just completely missed. Oh boy. Alright, now get me out of here. This is a difficult situation that I don't want to deal with right now. I'm gonna go back to the dream! Let me recover my sanity in the dream. There's a lot. There's all these great ones staring down at me. I think they make for a great piece, right? A great addition to the atmosphere of the game. Now that they've been revealed and you've seen them in familiar locations, they're just all over the place, everywhere, just sort of looking at you. Some of them are curious, picking you up and teleporting you. Some of them are hostile, shooting lasers at you. Others are just hanging out. They seem to be happy to be doing whatever they're doing. Right? And they're frequent. They're everywhere. Now that they've been exposed, you can see them all over the place. I think it's a very cool way to signal the way that things have shifted once you get to this point in the game. Anyway, I'll talk to you again in the dream. Okay. So. Can't remember if I did this in the last episode or not. I can tell it's been a few days since I did the recording. But I should find out pretty soon. Okay, I haven't done it yet. Cool. Because as fun as it was to get to use the Tonitrus again, because it's an old friend at this point, I made great use of it in the Translation Born playthrough. Translation Born playthrough isn't over, if you can believe that. But I made good use of it there. It's time. We're going to make use of the bonus weapon here. The one that I didn't think, that I was debating for a long time about whether or not it would be worth getting to +6 because it's a bit of a challenge. I didn't necessarily want to take my strength to 20, but now that I do have my strength to 20, we can get to the Ligarius wheel to +6 here, and we can play around with that. But that's going to be something that I do in the next episode. I think I'll do what I did last time. I have a lot of blood gems, so I think it'd be pretty boring to just watch me go through those menus. Okay, yeah, and I definitely need more blood vials, so I don't mind spending a bunch of blood echoes on them now. That's pretty, decently healthy in terms of resources. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to go outfit the Ligarius wheel, get it ready for combat. So at the start of the next episode, we will change into a new outfit, get ourselves equipped with a new weapon, and then we will proceed even further into Yahar'gul and try and figure out what in the world is going on. I don't think we'll succeed. Nobody's really succeeded in 10 years, but we get to wonder anew at the strangeness of Yahar'gul. But that'll be next time. For now, I'm going to call an end to my hunt for the evening. Thank you all very much for joining me, and I wish all of you good hunting.